again on page 12, and we need to move along, but lovers' dates that ended in woman's death. That's why I say today the dailies have me heavy.
Wow.
Because she went on a date.
Story?
So, gosh, this is Rispa Ngendo, right? May her soul rest in peace, and also holding out hope for the young men. But she basically was going on a date. So she says the boyfriend hails from Kericho, right? Traveled to Nairobi, saying he had missed her since they last met in December. Elated that she would spend Valentine's Day with the love of her life, she hurriedly bid her family goodbye. This was on February 1st, right? So just a few days ago. And then it says, according to her family, Ngendo received the call at around 1 p.m. Without hesitation, she prepared herself and started a long journey at 4 p.m. from Kirima village in Kirinyaga, eager to meet her sweetheart. Later, around 8 p.m., she called her younger sister and confirmed that she'd arrived. But on February 3rd, the family called Ngendo after she failed to contact them as promised. Her phone was off. In a very sinister turn of events, when the family reached out to the boyfriend, the boyfriend called them on the 4th of February, and he said, apparently, lightly, joking, oh, she's flown to the United States of America. Actually, we're both there, and we're just going to be there for 10 months.
To mend America.
To mend America. And she was like, you don't have passports. And she said it was his tone that made her nervous, because she said it sounded like it was jokingly said. And then unfortunately on February 5th, the day after he called, is when they get that news that their Ngendo's decomposing body had been found in a house in Kajiado, in the area where her boyfriend had been employed as a farmhand. And then what's even more gruesome and, trigger warning, is that her teeth were missing and her face was completely disfigured. And when you see cases like this, the thing about cases around violence and intimate partner violence, the signs many times when it's intimate partner violence is when it's overkill. That was what happened to her, was overkill. So just looking at this range of headlines, the case is being pursued. I think they're saying that police in Kajiado informed us that the suspect called and reported that he had hacked our daughter to death. All right. It couldn't immediately be established why the suspect killed her. So they are calling as a family on DCI to get to the bottom of the matter. Again, going back to our platform and advocacy, and really being able to establish, first of all, there's a social norms issue, and then there's a safety issue, and then there's an independent investigation issue. And all of these have to work together. But more than that is proactively, what are we doing to establish what is happening in society around social norms, around mental health, around awareness and safety, around signs that perhaps the person that you're with isn't altogether there, isn't somebody safe to be around. I think that needs to be, there's so many moving parts, but I think we have to establish something more proactive as a society, because we keep reacting.
True.
And that pattern in itself leads to more cases. It
does. And also maybe from an empowerment perspective as well, because sometimes you do realize that this is not a safe space, but your options are quite limited. So it's leave and go where? Leave and eat what? Leave and without the kids? Things like that, right? Then how do we have support systems for women and even men in situations like this, where you do sometimes recognize that, this is not the best place for me, but your options are greatly limited.
Social justice centers would be great to just get information. They're in the heart of communities, and I think they could speak to those gaps, whether it's judicial gaps, investigation gaps, and putting public pressure and community awareness and stronger legal frameworks should be some of the things that we focus on.
Guys, there's that, those two words, mental illness. I think we play around with those two words, and it's clear that there's an issue in our society. In fact, not just clear, okay? Around 2020, the government commissioned a task force led by Dr. Frank Njenga, having other psychiatrists, psychologists, and other experts. And they went around the country and they looked at, they spoke to people, they spoke to medics, they looked at hospital records, and they came back and said that a very high percentage of people who just turn up to hospital, it's a headache, it's a toothache, it's a whatever, they actually have a mental illness. And this task force, commissioned by the government, returned a report to the government and said, please declare mental illness a national emergency.
Right.
That was in 2020. We are in 2025. That has not been done. Not much effort is being put on mental health. And all these things are leading up to mental health. You are here with your family and you have to downgrade your living standards, mental health. Then you're dealing with all these issues, mental health. These 3 women whose husbands just disappeared, how do you think their mental status is right now? They're raising children who are months old. How do you think that is transferring to these children that they're raising now? They don't know where their husband went. They don't know what happened. Nobody's giving them an answer. How do you think these things are just compounding one after the other into the other? How? We have a serious issue of mental health, and unless we push to fix it, we shall continue just reading those stories. 3 dead, botched probe, and still no answers 4 years later. I mean, in the stories, in the papers, that's what we see. It's just violence, 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 depression, depression. There was a story yesterday about this woman who killed her children and then she took her own life.
And had an 8-page note that she left,
yeah.
You know. And a lot of the time people say it's not an excuse, it's an explanation, right? Because there are cases where you say, well, you have to validate the fact that accountability is necessary, especially in cases like femicide, murder. But it's not to discount the fact that it's a compounding effect.
Right.
And when you let things go too long, again, the concern, in Africa, in a lot of societies, there's a stigma around mental illness, even recognizing that it's an issue. But what happens when your new reality asks of you to recognize it and then you invalidate it? You're basically telling people, it's in your head.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. Be a big boy, be a big girl.
Right.
We went through
Man
it.
up.
Yeah. Oof.
Man
Right.
up, that one, right?